Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and once again we come together to answer the question that survives the cold vacuum of space: is it worth it? Today we're going to be taking a look at Starfighter Origins, a 90s-style space combat simulator developed by MadAboutGames. Now, this will be a more narrative piece than our standard first impressions videos for this one, and I think in a few minutes you'll understand why, and in spite of some people saying how much they hate me talking about myself, I'm going to talk about myself. My absolute favorite games in the mid to late 90s were the Wing Commander series. Those games were very much a space combat simulator that Starfighter Origins took direct inspiration from. However, that inspiration and heavy influence doesn't translate to levels of quality here. Now, make no mistake, Starfighter Origins is an indie title and must be taken on that level, but I have to be honest when I say that my excitement at the prospect of playing a space combat sim were quickly tempered and then dashed against the rocky shoals that were the game's core framework and mechanics. Now, right at the start, I noticed that there were no audio options available anywhere within the game's interface. Indeed, there were several things that were exceptionally odd about the game's options menus. Firstly, even though the game claims to support both controller and HOTAS, it seems to be designed to only support the controller, which was a bit of a disappointment. Now, in addition to that, the control scheme forces you to use the right thumbstick for maneuvering, and the left thumbstick is used merely for throttle, which just felt kind of backwards to me. Also, the Y-axis controls were not inverted by default, which threw me off initially. This is supposedly rebindable, but clicking on what I assume to be a button that is labeled to perform that function did nothing whatsoever. Now, in addition to that, rebinding the keys, it does this odd thing where it takes you into a completely different submenu that it actually has to load, much like it's loading into a level of the game, which made no real sense to me, and it felt extremely disjointed and broken and not well thought out at all. But laying the options menu aside, the game's problems continued. First, a simple design choice that I found highly aggravating was the fact that the game forces you to plod through the 4 exceptionally tedious tutorial missions before it unlocks the game's campaign for you to play. These tutorials only serve to underscore a growing sense of dread as I realized that the game's controls were highly unresponsive, the acceleration and deceleration take an absolute eternity, and the game's interfaces are lackluster and shallow at best. The quote, unique CTA, or combat targeting aid screen for dogfighting that they tout so proudly in the Steam page is merely a slightly zoomed in window of what is displayed directly in front of your craft. Now, in addition to that, the radar HUD is laid out in a full globe as opposed to a more standard layout, which isn't bad, except the forward cone that is displayed serves as an arrow as opposed to a target, which leaves you tracking to be a bit off on the radar, and it's much more guesswork than anything else. Now, the game's design itself leaves much to be desired as well. Now, in order to actually start a campaign, I had to close and relaunch the game 3 times as it kept freezing with every attempt. And once I finally did get into the campaign, I encountered a bug within the first mission that had me sitting there with absolutely nothing to do for over 10 minutes before I finally got bored and closed out the game. And that was after waiting around for 2 minutes at the start of the mission, being ordered to spend nearly a full minute traveling to an area, fight a single enemy fighter that I killed in less than 30 seconds, a minute of traveling back to rejoin the ships that I was supposedly protecting, and then a very long wait while I got fed up. The game's flaws continued with seemingly nowhere near enough positives to balance them out. The cockpit and the numerical overlays jitter independently of each other and for seemingly no reason at all, which denotes a lack of polish that is prevalent throughout the game. The lip-syncing during the missions briefings are beyond laughable, and the character assets seem a bit too cookie-cutter for the asking price here. Now, when it comes right down to it, the game feels buggy, broken, and unfinished, and needs some more time in development. However, the developers decided to publish the game as is, and I have to make a recommendation or lack thereof based on its current deplorable state. And as a result, there is no conceivable way I would recommend this game to my viewers without significant updating and patching, which is a real shame. Now, the space combat sim as a genre is among my most favorite of video games, right next to the MechWarrior series, among others. It is a genre that is uniquely suited to video game opportunities, both from a mechanical and storytelling standpoint, and it is a genre that should not have died off so completely as it did. It's also one of the genres of games where virtual reality would fit hand in glove for a truly unique and immersive experience. And with a game that makes claim to such a venerated genre, I most definitely had higher hopes. But even laying those hopes aside and looking at the game from a purely objective standpoint, it still does not change the fact that the game is broken and incomplete. Perhaps in another 6 months the game might be halfway decent, but there is a good game here, somewhere underneath it all. It could be a game well worth playing, but not without a lot of additional work. So please let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments down below. I know this video is a little bit more brief than usual, but there wasn't a whole lot else to talk about the game and not a lot of positive to counterbalance the negatives. So unfortunately, there's far less to say about the game than I had initially set out to. And so, yeah, let me know your thoughts, as I said, down in the comments down below. And while you're at it, please do like and share. It may seem a small thing, but every additional click of the mouse helps raise visibility for the channel. And if you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe. And if you're interested in supporting my channel even further, there are links down in the description for my Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. Please do make use of them, as once again, every little bit helps. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and thanks for watching.